very happy to be here with you today and to share a few of the stories of people coming to the practice of the Buddha's teachings and finding relief, joy, and happiness, because that's really what the Buddha was teaching about. Where do we find happiness and where do we not find happiness? From the very beginning of his teachings, the Buddha laid out a complete and effective path for finding this happiness. And this path covers every aspect of human life. When people practice it, they find relief from stress and sadness, anxiety, fear, and every other kind of suffering and discontent. And it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to support, and it's beautiful to experience ourselves. And there's really, as many of you may know, our path is the Noble Eightfold Path. That's its formal kind of expression. As part of the Four Noble Truths, lays out this formula for how to find relief, how to become enlightened. But of course, the Buddha taught for 45 years, and he talked about these things in many different ways, and it gives us a lot of material, a lot of techniques and methods to use to really make it a part of our life and to apply it for the particular situations we find ourselves in ways that are effective. Now, the Noble Eightfold Path can be described as having three kind of levels or aspects. There are the parts that fit into the category of virtuous behavior, like right speech, right action, and right livelihood. There are the parts that fit into the development of the mind in meditation, so right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion or samadhi. And then there are the parts that fit into the category of wisdom, right view and right intention. And when we think about the ways in which people experience relief, we can look at those three sort of layers. So oftentimes when people come to the Vihara, so the Karuna Buddhist Vihara has been in existence now for more than 10 years, and so many people have come through and come with various kinds of situations in their life, of course. It's been a real blessing to be able to be part of the ways in which people pick up these teachings and use them. And the first layer often is the way in which they start to experience relief and joy and more happiness in their life is with the moral precepts. The 5 precepts that the Buddha gave a kind of baseline for wholesome and beautiful human behavior, becoming more harmless, more trustworthy. So we had a man who was extremely stressed. Working in Silicon Valley can be very stressful. And he was really desperate to find some support. And at that time, we were located in the heart of Silicon Valley in the neighborhood. And so it was, he found out about our place and he started coming. And he took the 5 precepts and he really applied them. And week after week, when he'd come for our study of the Buddha's teachings, you could see him getting happier and happier. It was delightful. And he talked about various things that he found helpful. And one of the things that he found was related to the third of the 5 precepts, actually, wholesome sexual activity, avoiding what's unwholesome or hurtful. And he said he stopped flirting with the women at work and found that his relationship with his wife was so renewed, refreshed. He said he was available to her now in a way that he had never been before. And he didn't expect that. He felt like those little jokes and things were pretty harmless, but actually He learned, he saw how much difference it made. You can look at each of the precepts in this way. So, many of us, myself included, I grew up with killing living beings, small ones. Flies got in a house. I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, so flies get in the house and you swat them. Now it makes me cringe a little bit. But back then, that was just what you do. And my first experience of not killing and really caring about all living creatures happened when I went to a monastery in Thailand and didn't swat the mosquitoes. And you think, well, how much does this really matter, either to the mosquito or to me? But what we see as we practice kindness and caring for all living beings, thinking, well, they don't want pain, they want to live just like me, the heart starts to change. It becomes softer, it becomes more caring. And when we notice these changes in ourselves, then we start to see the value of these practices. There was a woman who told us that her job was to water the plants in various buildings in San Francisco. So she'd go from office building to office building, caring for the plants. And before she took the precepts, she would see like a candy dish out on a counter and she would take some as she goes by. And then after the precepts, that second precept of avoiding taking what isn't given, she would think, well, that's not really for me. That's really for the customers, the clients. And there was one place where she would take care of the plants where they said, every time you come in, feel free to help yourself to a. So when she would go there, she would say, I'm going to get my drink out of the fridge. And they'd say, yeah, go ahead. This is great. And she said that what changed in her was this feeling of, she no longer had this feeling of kind of doing something that was a little deceptive or a little bit wrong. And from that, she felt more confident, clear. And when that happens, when we're careful about our behaviors, then we become more trustworthy. And we start to see that in the people around us, that they can really rely on us. And the same thing is true with the fourth precept about speech, where we're really careful to be truthful. And maybe we start saying something that's a little bit not quite true or exaggerated or something like that. If we stop and start over, people notice this. And they trust you more. And we trust ourselves more. And we feel good about ourselves. And this is actually a huge benefit for being able to deal with the different kinds of things that come along in life. And then the fifth one is always challenging for some people to avoid alcohol and drugs that rob us of our clarity and mindfulness. And usually the way people find the benefits of avoiding those is through practice, is through trying it out, noticing the impact it has on the mind. And when we're practicing meditation, practicing development of the mind, we start to see how beneficial it is to take care around those kinds of things. So it's really wonderful to be in a community of people where you can have that kind of trust that you're safe, what you own is safe. And this is something that people really find supportive, and it's supportive in ways that helps us let go, helps us be able to feel safe enough to really turn towards the deeper issues in our life, to hold them, to be present with them, and to share with trusted companions. And this leads into deeper and deeper meditation. So that next layer of meditation, and for those of you who have a meditation practice, you've probably been able to see changes in your life. And this is what we see when people develop and in our own lives. And being able to be more resilient, being able to be more patient, being able to really turn towards what we feel when we're having strong feelings, and to be able to hold that and care for ourselves and dig down into the deep causes of our suffering, and to be able to make progress in letting go of those causes. So you can see how it works together with the virtue. The virtue that the Buddha taught isn't just about the 5 precepts, it goes way deeper than that. And he said that when we have this kind of cleanness, clarity, and cleanliness in our bodily actions and our speech and our thoughts, then we don't have to wish for a mind of non-regret, but it actually automatically, we don't have regrets. Sometimes we carry regrets for a long time from back before the practice of precepts and virtuous behavior. But then there are also ways to be generous, kind, forgiving, to let go. And it's definitely a source of relief. And when we have that development in the mind, then our meditation goes deeper. We can let go more and more into meditation and experience more and more of the results, the benefits of that. There was a woman who was working in high tech, since that's kind of where our experience has been. And she was practicing an hour of meditation every day. And she said she went into the office, and the receptionist one day, when she'd go into the office every day for work, and one day the receptionist said to her, when you come in, I immediately feel calm. And it's not only for our own benefit, but also for the people around us, to really have that sense that we can be patient, calm, a little bit. I usually use the word insulated. It feels like our nervous system is insulated by this peacefulness that we experience. And the final layer, the third layer, is wisdom. And the wisdom that the Buddha taught is about seeing the way things actually are, and we can test these ideas out for ourselves in our own experience. Things change, that there is this constant uncertainty about things in the world because they change, and that we don't have to try to hold things together that are destined to fall apart, because that change is inherent in everything here, including our relationships, including whatever situations we have in life. Now that can sound really scary, and it is until we face it. Now, when we turn and look at and accept the nature of the way things work, then we can start to develop a solid foundation based on wisdom, based on seeing the way things are. It's both a developing of our own kind of deep stability based on truth, and our own kindness and compassion, our wisdom. And it's also the development of our skill in being able to, and being prepared, being able to work with things and being prepared for them to happen. So one of the skills I already mentioned a bit when I was talking about meditation or samadhi is the skill of being able to bear with what we feel. and hold it lightly, but letting it change on its own, working through to understand the causes. I'm talking about particular habits, like maybe getting angry about certain things or feeling hurt by the things that people say or do. We start to hold those things more lightly, not taking them so personally. And the Buddha talked about these three aspects of reality that we can see in everything. First of all, that they're unstable, they change, things change. So when we have these strong feelings, we can know they're not going to last. There's a flash of anger or lust or sadness. It will change. Because things change, if we cling to them, there's going to be suffering. So part of what develops, a large part of what develops, is this lack of clinging and craving, learning how to find what's satisfying, nurturing, that isn't this, expectation of something external to ourselves to satisfy us. So that internal, spiritual safety and security is what blossoms in us. And it helps us make better decisions. We can look more clearly at something that we feel like. I had a friend who came to me and she had been wishing to get in a relationship to find someone to share her life with. And she had been lonely. And she came to me and she said, there's a man who wants me to get involved with him, but he's married. I want to do it, but I'm not sure. And I said, and she wanted to know what I thought. And I said, definitely stay away from that. If he really is having the kinds of difficulties in his marriage where it's a good time to leave it, then he can leave it. If he really cares about you, he'll come back to you. And so she took a few steps back. And she was so grateful. She kept telling me over the next 2 or 3 years, I'm so glad I didn't pursue that. It's like we can be pulled by our feelings, our desires, our wishes into decisions that are in the long term not good for us. But with the help of the Dhamma, we can see that. And with the help of friends, the Buddha really encouraged us to have good friends who also keep these kinds of standards in their life. And so sometimes we find these situations that are really difficult. Illnesses, loss, and people practicing come to these situations with a different expectation and a different approach. Patience, acceptance, and a lot of love, and a happiness that runs deeper than life itself. And I do have one more story about someone recently. This is from someone who's been coming to teachings on the Dharma for years now. Her husband of many, many years has Alzheimer's disease. And of course, it's progressing. She was at the point where she was feeling an incredible amount of grief. And she was present with those feelings. And then she was listening to a Dharma talk about attachment and letting go of what we're entangled with. And during the talk, she said she had a complete shift in her heart to accepting the reality of the situation. And she said this desire to have access to her husband as she had known him as this sweet partner, to this reality now where her role is to be a caregiver rather than a partner. And to recognize that this is now the way it is. And that she felt so relieved, happy, and free. And it's really kind of challenging to imagine how we can be in a situation that's so difficult, and that the situation hasn't changed at all, but something has changed so completely in ourselves that we can be happy and content and work with what's there. But it really comes from all three of those levels: the sila, samadhi, and panya, the moral virtue, the immersion into meditation, and the wisdom that helps us be with life and also see the value of every stage and every situation.